Hello to all the parents watching this. A lot of us are still staying at home right now, working from home and spending much more time with our kids than ever before. I'm sure you also see all the milestones. You see how their brains are like sponges at a time like this, especially now with school being at home, distance learning, and so different from a physical classroom with a teacher and classmates. So how do we make sure that our children are learning despite school being at home? And we are super lucky today because two doctors that we love here on Paano ba to have agreed to really break it down for us and help us develop fast learners. Please say hi to Dr. Jun Dimaano, the Medical Director of Abbott Nurtrition, and Dr. Joseph Regalado, a Pediatrician-Psychologist. Hi!
Hello! Hi, Bianca! Hi, Dr. Joseph!
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, Jun! Hi, Bianca!
How are you both?
I'm doing very well, keeping myself busy and productive at home while keeping myself healthy and safe as well. So thank you for asking, and hi to you and to all of your viewers. Hello also to Dr. Joseph.
Yes. How about you, Doc Joseph?
Well, me naman, I'm busy with doing lectures and busy with the Pediatric Society as well. And I've managed to do a modified practice of pediatrics.
Grabe, no? Talagang ito na ang new normal. You're both very busy, so thank you super for your time and for being so generous again. The last time we were all together was December last year, physically in a Paano ba to live. And there's just so much more to learn, especially adapting to the times right now. So this video is all about faster learning in the new normal. I actually came up with a video a few weeks back about faster learning. Pero syempre kayo ang mas makakapag-describe and explain talaga sa amin what that means. I mentioned in that video, Doc June, faster learning kasi is sort of essential now in this new normal and the connection of proper nutrition to faster learning. Now, I mentioned two terms in that video, brain processing speed tsaka long-term potentiation. These are such big terms, but how can you explain it simply?
They seem intimidating, but they are actually very simple processes that all of our brains go through when we are in the process of learning. First of all, nowadays kasi, children are bombarded with more stimuli. And also now, the screening time of children have increased tremendously. From before, a few years ago, 3 hours lang. Ngayon, nasa 6 to 6.5 hours per day na exposure sa mga digital media, television, all of these social media platforms, video games, etc. And lalo na ngayon, sabi mo nga, new normal. So, ang schooling ngayon is virtual. No? So, kailangan yung mga bata, mabilis nila ma-assimilate yung stimuli so that they can cope with the learning that is expected of them through online schooling. And lalo na ngayon, sa mga digital platforms, these stimuli from there are actually very fast. Hindi siya yung nakikita natin sa physical, natural, real world. Kaya kailangan yung brains ng mga bata are equipped to be able to adapt quickly to these fast-changing stimuli, both in terms of yung speed nila and yung quantity ng stimuli. Now, you mentioned about brain processing speed. In simple terms, brain processing speed is yung bilis nung pag-make sense ng stimuli or information from the environment ng brains natin so that we can figure it out. What is this about? So doon natin makukuha yung bilis ng pag-intindi natin sa mga bagay-bagay. And brain processing speed is actually the communication between neurons in the brain. Because as you probably know, we have billions of neurons in the brain. And those neurons, just like people, they like to communicate to each other, to pass on messages. Now, in order for us to learn efficiently and effectively, kailangan yung brain, yung neurons na yon, mabilis mag-communicate para mapasa niya yung information so that, for example, this apple is red. The brain will quickly know that this apple is red, and the child would know that red is such a color. And it is one of the most important measures of cognitive development or the learning ability of the child. And the second term is long-term potentiation. Yung LTP, medyo intimidating nga yung term na yun, pero suffice it to say na yun yung mga brain connections na na-form sa ating utak kapag repetitive ang ginagawa nating behavior. So yung brain connections natin, sabi nga natin kanina, the billions of neurons are communicating with each other. So yung mga neurons na yun, may mga patterns yan. For example, certain neurons are activated for, let's say, when you're playing. Certain set of neurons are activated when you're reading. or solving a math problem. So all of those, iba-iba yung sets of neurons at iba-iba yung patterns na yon. Now, yung connections ng brain cells are strengthened through the process of long-term potentiation. So kung maganda ang long-term potentiation mo, maganda rin yung memory ng brain cells mo. And therefore, you can easily retrieve information and you can also easily form a habit, especially good habits in school, para maging effective yung child sa kanyang academic performance. No? So it actually forms a part of our medium to long-term memory kapag yung neurons mo are effectively communicating with each other. And this has to be supported, of course, with proper nutrition, such as brain nutrients, and sinasabi natin DHA, lutein, natural vitamin E, iron, iodine, zinc, and all of these other brain nutrients na importante. Kapag may kulang sa mga nutrients na yon, we can expect that the child will be a slow learner.
Okay, now it's a clearer picture in my head. I mentioned this in the video as well, but please do try to explain it to us better. This concept of absorb and apply. So the child gets to absorb, like Doc Jun said, the things that the child sees and apply in the real world. Tell us about that, Doc.
Yung absorb and apply, the child will see so much through the senses. Of course, sees things and feels things to the other senses. So remember, ang development ng bata, ang kanyang experience initially ay sensory. And of course, yung pag-experience yan, it's different, no? Varying degrees. For example, may nakita siya, he sees things and then sticks in the memory. As sabi nga ni Jun, it's in your memory, especially if repetitive yung experience. It gets stronger based on the memory, stays there for a while. And then, when a particular experience or particular situation is similar to that situation where he experienced it, dito ngayon, he will behave in a manner similar to that where he starts to show that exact behavior, not necessarily with the same materials, and that's what you call application. So you have an absorption based on the senses as what you experience, put it in your memory, and then you apply. Ito yung absorb and apply. Pero pinaka-importante yung nutrition. That's why we say first 1,000 days. Kailangan yung mga nerve cells muna are very good. No? Tapos yung connection ng mga nerve cells na yan, kailangan very strong din. Nadi-develop yan sa tamang nutrition. Having have the structural component because of the nutrition and the experience, eto ngayon. So nagiging mas kayang-kaya niya because you already have the infrastructure to do it. Kumbaga when you have to go someplace, nandiyan yung highway. And if there's good nutrition, expressway siya. So you'll be able to get there, you get to learn it more. That's how you do it.
Yeah, the nutrition provides the building blocks, no, for the brain. Sabi nga ni Dr. Joseph, parang may highway, no? Kasi yung brain natin is really made up of a lot of fat, no? Kaya kailangan mo ng omega-3 fatty acids to form the cell membrane in the form of DHA. Now, kung wala yung mga building blocks na yon to assemble the structural component of the brain, then mahihirapan mag-process ng information yung bata. So, kailangan mo ng nutrition to provide the building blocks and the energy because the brain uses up a lot of energy compared to the other organs of our body. And of course, the stimulation coming from the mom, from the dad, and from the environment. So those two go hand in hand to enhance the learning experience of the child.
I love the way you put it. It's so visual to me now about the smooth highway na if proper nutrition and good nutrition yung meron yung bata, skyway. Pero kapag poor nutrition, kulang-kulang ang mga key brain nutrients or the food they eat is unhealthy. Medyo yan yung dirt road. So medyo matatagalan.
Puro potholes, puro lubak, ganun.
That's true. I totally understand. And syempre, as parents, we want our child to go dun sa smooth skyway versus dun sa dirt road na medyo mabagal ang takbo. Doc Joseph, with your background, of course, as a psychologist as well for children, ang laking change nito, not just for parents, not just for teachers, but lalong-lalo na for the child. Used to a learning environment in a physical classroom, ngayon it's online learning. How different is it for the child and what can parents, I guess, do to support them better?
Napakagandang question. Napakalaki ng difference dahil napaka-importante ng contact. Sa child, di ba, we always say face-to-face, eye to eye. In fact, that eye contact is very important because you touch the soul. But now, it's not there. Kaya yung challenge is so much been placed now in the hands of the parents and particularly the mom. And hopefully, the dads share. We always talk about team parenting, So
Yes.
napaka-importante ngayon ng role ng mother kasi you have to prompt the child. The teacher can only say things. We hope the teachers will be like actors in a theater. You have to exaggerate the movements, the way you talk and all that. Talaga makuha mo talaga yung attention and focus of the child. Otherwise, napakahirap magkaroon ng teaching moments. And remember, learning, especially in preschool, is experiential. Kailangan i-provide mo yung materials and you have to show the child how to use the materials. It's different when it's there, and especially, napaka-importante, yung learning with peers. Wala kang socialization ngayon eh. And there's a lot of association learning associated with learning with other kids.
Ang hirap, ang dami talagang adjustments, Doc, ano? And
Oh, yes.
in the chat groups of fellow moms, a concern of a lot of us parents is, sumusunod ba dun sa parang lesson of the day? Natututo ba nung dapat, kunyari, it's a word, it's a 3-letter word that they're supposed to learn today? Paano kung hindi siya makafollow? I guess what's your advice to parents na medyo naka-laser focus doon? Kasi syempre ayaw mong maiwan or mahuli sa lesson ng anak mo.
Very important, mothers, not to compare your child with somebody else's child. There should be fun in learning. Fun in learning. Remember, it's a long way to go. So kung magiging very negative yung anxiety na ma-experience ng bata in this early stage of learning, you will not go anywhere. And remember, it's not just doing the ABC 1, 2, 3 and knowing these colors. There are other things that have to be learned, which are also, speaking of intelligence as well. So hindi ang cognitive function is basically knowing 1, 2, 3 or memorizing things. But sabi nga ni Jun kanina, knowing the relationship, na i-connect mo yung one thing and the other. Ang important is also mapapractice niya in everyday life, not based on the teachers have check, you can recite this, recite that. Ang importante, kaya niyang ilagay doon sa life as he's living and having fun in that learning and applied. Again, absorb and apply. Not absorb and recite.
I like that. Not absorb and recite, but absorb and apply. So true. And I think ang ganda nun kasi when we were all in school, medyo heavy sa memorization, di ba?
Right.
And now it's more of like encouraging them to apply it to different things they see around them. So that's why actually I love hearing and learning about the different ways that learning manifests. Siyempre, the old school style nga, like you mentioned, we're so fixated on the ABC 1, 2, 3, but there's so many ways that can indicate that your child is a fast learner. So I want to go through the different domains of learning with you. So the first is art. Doc Joseph, what are examples of that?
I understand JC paints, right? Or those?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Paints.
So, yung art, makikita na ng daughter mo, si Sia, makikita niya yung JC as he paints. That art, that action, the colors that he uses, no? Then later on, makikita mo si Sia, kung makikita siya ng materials ng ganon, or something similar like colors, and sometimes lipstick, pagpe-paints sila. Kasi when they see something, it creates behavior scripts eh. Nakita niya nga itong materials na to, then she does that. It may not be as perfect, the child applies in that art. And remember, art is an expression of the child's, yung sarili niya, yung kanyang skills, nakikita niya doon. Coordination is there. So that's very important.
I love that you mentioned that. Okay, let me just show you something, Doc. Hold on. So this is actually my husband's unang pasada ng painting. And let me show you this, I actually had it here for a different background. When Lucia did her own, it's this.
Wow. Impressive, ha? Kahit ako, hindi ko kayang gawin yan, ha?
Did he learn that he can paint?
Maganda.
Here I am being a proud mom showing my daughter. I've come to this point showing my daughter's artwork. But yeah, because my husband loves to paint and she just feels like she loves it too. So they paint together all the time. JC bought her own paint set, brushes. So she loves painting with him. So for me, itong art, I see it. I see it every day that she'll ask for bond paper and crayons. And another thing that I love about school now is before, again, during our time when we'd listen, it was so particular na you paint within the lines, right?
Oh, that's true.
Now I love it that we just let our children fly with their different ideas when it comes to art.
So that art is parang ginaya niya yung painting ni JC. Can you show it again? Ganda.
Okay.
Parang
She used her
abstract
own color.
painting.
Yes, JC paints abstract, so she does her
Wow.
own.
So as Doc Joseph mentioned a while ago, learning should be fun. And I think doing art is a fun way to learn. and also an opportunity to bond. So as you said, she was painting together with her dad, di ba? And at the same time, it's a bonding opportunity between her and the father, and maybe you, if you do art with her together. And for some children, it's actually even therapeutic, no? May tinatawag na art therapy. Even for older people, no? Art is actually a very good way to learn, especially for children. And you also learn more about them while looking at and appreciating the art that they did for themselves and for you.
In fact, yung colors, when we are in grade school, specific dapat ganito ang kulay, di ba? Pati hair and all that. Of course, we've seen now the ibang colors in reality. But what is important din na na-miss natin, we were not allowed to be creative. Ang creativity cannot be confined. As you said, hindi siya dapat pwede ka lumampas ng lines and all that. Kasi expression mo yan. So, hindi dapat pinipigil yung expression na yun.
I love that. That's a great reminder for every parent. Okay, let's move on to the next domain. And this one, I'm trying to understand a bit better, but emotional. What exactly does that encompass? Doc Joseph, what can you say about emotional learning?
Emotion is a subject in life.
Very true. One of the most important.
That's right.
Ito na napaka-important, especially at this time. No? Everybody has a right to his emotions. Walang right, walang wrong. Actually, lahat ng emotions dapat right. Because yun na nafe-feel niya. So here, yung emotions, the child should be able to express himself, yung kanyang emotion. What should be modified there is actually the reaction of a person to their emotions. And then kasama sa emotions na to is for them to be able to distinguish a positive and negative emotions that their actions can cause on others. So dito napapasok yung how emotionality or emotion itself is an expression also of intelligence. Kasi nagiging sensitive din siya sa emotion ng iba. Nung araw kasi, parents don't even talk. They just stare. And ngayon, you have to medyo itaas ang boses and all. And importante is if we can give our children the list of possible cues that you are not feeling well or that her behavior is causing you displeasure, the better. So, yun mataas ang kanyang emotional and intelligence noon.
Oh my goodness! A light bulb just went off in my head because when you said that, kasi parang you'd think that emotional, in terms of this emotional learning domain, it's more of how the child handles emotions. But you mentioned it also includes how the child reads the emotion of the people around them. So I have a story about Lucia. So you know how we can get so busy despite work at home. And so one time I was so busy, super pounding on the laptop, typing, answering emails. And then she goes, Mommy. Yung kala ko kinukulit lang ako. Mommy. And then I go, what, Lucia? Yung medyo I snap. Yung medyo may inis kasi she saw that I was busy but she was calling me. And so when I went, yeah, Lucia, she looked at me parang, a slight shock, and then she goes, I love you. And I was like, oh, grabe. I felt so guilty. So when she saw me melt at that time, now she always does it. When she sees that I'm so busy, she'll make me collect just to say hi and I love you. And that's
very sweet.
Learning din pala. She's very sweet. Very
Baliktad ikaw na ni-reassure, no?
Oo, baliktad, no? No, but I remember kasi every time, like lalo na when this work at home thing started, I would be very clear with her. Mommy's gonna work now, okay? If you need me, just come to me. I had to explain kasi syempre she was used to me going out for work, but now everything was here. So siguro na connect niya, the stronger brain connections, thanks to similar info. So
yes.
She came up with that on her own. Doc Jun, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, which means that she has high emotional intelligence. No? The fact that she knows an I love you from a daughter will really make the day of the mom, especially if the mom is stressed. No? So now talking about emotional intelligence, did you know that emotional intelligence is a stronger predictor of success in life compared to IQ? Because before, way back in the 70s, 80s, IQ talaga yung focus ng mga schools. Improve the IQ, the higher the IQ, the more intelligent, and the more successful the student will become later on in life. But in the mid-90s, there was a book, it's on emotional intelligence. Since then, the popularity of emotional intelligence is now becoming bigger and stronger. Now, they said that emotional intelligence is, as I've said, a stronger predictor of success in life compared to IQ, especially when the child has the ability to control one's emotions. So, sabihin ng emotional intelligence, kaya niya mag-self-regulate to express appropriately yung emotions niya at the right time, at the right place, at the right, extent. No? So, yun yung tinatawag nating emotional intelligence, particularly yung self-control. Now, there are ways to actually acknowledge the emotional status of the child and to further cultivate it para maging constructive to rather than destructive. The first one is you have to be aware of the child's emotions. As parents and as adults, we are very sensitive and aware of our own emotions, but our children reflect this back to us, and we also have to be sensitive to them. If the parents are always stressed, they're always, sad and negative, the child will feel this and the child will also express this in his own way. So kailangan aware tayo sa environment niya at sa emotions niya. Second is, we have to use this as a coaching opportunity and a learning opportunity for the child. Let's say the child has an emotional expression, nagalit siya, or natakot siya, or nainis siya, mag-tantrums. So let this be a learning and a coaching opportunity between you and the child. So maganda to para to bond and to explain what is maybe the proper way and the appropriate way to express it, and to get down to the root of what is causing the emotion. Usually, yung negative emotions are the ones calling our attention. Next is to listen and to validate the feelings of the child. So let's say meron siyang emotional expression, nagalit siya, nagtantrum. So let's listen to it. Let's not brush it off, and let's acknowledge that talagang the child is experiencing something, and we have to ask more questions about it para alam niya that we are giving him the full attention that he or she deserves. The next one is to label their emotions. In that way, they know that their emotion is not new, that their emotion is normal. It happens to everyone kasi may label na siya. And it also widens their vocabulary of what kind of emotions they feel, so that when they communicate it to you in the future, they will know how to express it. They can say, Mom, I was upset because of XYZ. Mom, I am angry because of this. Mom, I am afraid because I saw this or someone did this to me, etc., etc. And lastly, if there are problems arising from these emotional expressions, let's help the child problem solve. Again, go to the root cause, kung lalo na kung medyo destructive or inappropriate yung expression ng emotion, so that we can help the child go to the root of the problem and solve it on his own. And problem solving also requires a lot of brain power, and yung connections and long-term potentiation na yun, which also relies on memory, yung past experiences niya, past learnings niya. In order for you to be able to use it to problem solve, you have to put it first in your memory. Para alam mo, I learned this before. I touched the oven. It's hot. Therefore, I will not touch it again because it's already there in the memory of the brain. Kailangan niyo ng brain processing speed and long-term potentiation to be able to problem solve. But as an adult, we are there to coach and to handhold them to solve the problem. And later on, they can eventually solve it on their own.
Galing. I love it. I'm learning so much. Doc Joseph, I saw you were just nodding the whole time, agreeing. Did you want to add anything?
Yes, kasi when you speak of emotional intelligence, may three components yan. One is self-awareness, tapos yung social interaction, at saka empathy. Yung, for example, a child comes into a playroom where everybody are playing already. Self-awareness, alam ng bata kung anong gusto niya. Of course, he wants to play. And then there may be a particular toy or particular game he wants to play. So, aware siya nun. But, as sabi nga ni Doc Jun, pwedeng may problema ka at that time. So, may problem kang kailangang isolve? Because somebody else is playing with the toy, or a group has already been formed playing that game that you want, and you're not in it. And the toy is not with you. Ang kailangan yun is how do you do socially interact or engage? So, yung technique na gagawin ng bata. And of course, the previous learning is very important here. So, how does the child get into the group? Especially yung mga late dumadating sa mga birthday parties. Late siya yung mga bata, pinipit yung anak na mag-join agad, late sila. And then comes yung sasabi natin, empathy. So, kung magaling yung bata, because of that intelligence, naka-engage agad siya, then he's able to take turns and they play and become part of the group. Now, reversing it sa empathy, now comes somebody who's much later than him, wants to play with the toy that he has or with the game. So he feels for the child, especially if there's a different reaction from the child. More aggressive siya, or obviously umiiyak siya, and here comes the child feeling for that other child. Yun yung empathy niya. In that aspect, you just observe the child, how emotionally intelligent is the child in that sense, such that that other part of him was able to defer gratification or delay the gratification or reduce the happiness because he finds greater happiness in sharing. Ito yung mga klase ng intelligence na basically emotion-based.
I love that. And it's such a good reminder nga na to parents who feel like maybe their toddler isn't writing their name yet or doesn't get the way to write letters yet. Yung pala, what if sobrang emotionally mature yung anak nila? That is a form of learning that we should recognize as well. Okay, next one, intellectual. Okay, this is a bit easier to grasp, but tell us about it, Doc Joseph.
Intellectual, ito yung basically, mas academic yung base niyan.
Yeah.
No? Ang important here is not the academics in terms of grades and the honors that you receive. No? There's another aspect of the being intellectual. Kasi yung intellectual, kailangan you have the ability to gain knowledge and to apply the skills. So ito yung absorb and apply para malaman mong talagang intellectual siya. Tapos na yung definitions, as sabi nga ni Doc Jun, that is not the element of guarantee for success in later life. It is the emotional intelligence. A child will be able to use basic sense, basic knowledge, very important sa kanya, and how does he work on that problem. So intellectual pa rin yun. Like, isang example na lang, nakikita niya the cookie jar is up there, and then nakikita niya, kayang iabutin ng somebody else who's taller than an adult. So how does a child be able to compensate for that difference? Akala natin basta gusto lang kumuha, pero we never get to realize the child is trying to measure how the child will be able to do that. Minsan nakita mo, pulling a chair, pushing it there on the wall, and then trying to reach. Actually, they're trying to solve a problem there. And nakita lang natin, kagalitan pa natin yung bata because the child did something like that which is risky. But again, risk is something that we should allow also, which is far different from how we were reared in our time. So importante yun. The child tried to calculate, tried to solve the problem. And he did, if he was able to get the cookie. Hindi niya nakuha yung cookie, pinigilan mo siya. Very important yun. That aspect of what is intellectual really is be able to get the ability to get the knowledge and the skill and apply.
Yeah, I love that. Doc Jun, do you want to share anything about it?
Intellectual intelligence. That's the more traditional way of measuring intelligence, as I mentioned earlier. And intellectual abilities is actually easier to measure than emotional intelligence. Kaya yan yung mga measures of intelligence sa mga exams, sa schools, performance, sa mga researches. Ang ginagamit doon yung intellectual abilities. Sabi nga ni Dr. Joseph, one is problem solving, another is logical thinking, analysis. Meron din yung tinatawag natin yung mga typical, yung mga mathematical skills, mga reading ability, comprehension. All of those are measures of intellectual abilities of a child. Now, importante dito, again, yung brain processing speed. Kasi kapag binigyan tayo ng set of stimuli or data, the child must be able to make out something from those set of information or data, like a pattern or a thought or an idea. So kapag he makes sense of it, na kapag pinagsama-sama mo kunwari different types of marbles, tapos na-classify niya lahat ng red dito, lahat ng blue, lahat ng green, etc. So sabihin, marunong na siya mag-categorize. So meron na siya kahit papano logical thinking na lahat ng ganito dapat magkakasama sila. So iba-iba yan, milestones na yan, depending on the age of the child. Importante dito to strengthen nga the brain connections by giving them the right brain nutrients. Example na talaga nakita natin na importante is lutein, which is found in the retina of the eye. The retina is yung pinaka-film ng eye natin. Doon bumabagsak yung image na nakikita natin. Studies show na kapag mataas yung lutein levels dun sa retina, mas maganda yung brain processing speed ng bata at nagpa-perform siya better in certain academic domains such as math, language, reading. Kaya importante na may nutrients talaga in the brain to facilitate the brain processing speed, which is important for intellectual abilities.
Oh, next one, social. When it comes to social, the domain of learning, what is that about?
Social, that means you're interacting with somebody. When you say interaction, it has to be with somebody, which is with varies in age also, varies in relationship. Yung social, on a higher plane, is parang decorum. Ito yung nagtuturo sa atin how we are supposed to behave with this kind of persons in this kind of settings. For example, in children, kagaya sa sabi natin, do not talk when the teacher is talking. Do not talk when your mouth is full. Table manners for one. Those are social skills. And then, kagaya si Lucia, meron kayong baby sa bahay. Are you supposed to be noisy when our baby is sleeping? Yung social. Respect for elders, no? In the manners that you talk to elders. When you say po, opo. Yan. Kasama yon sa yung respect aspect. These are also social things. Napaka-importante niyan sa bata, sa learning niya.
I think I liken it to what you said about emotional in life. That is an as important subject matter for sure. Lalo na now at a time like this, my
That's
goodness. Right. Doc Jun?
I just would like to add to what Doc Joseph said. Social is actually a dimension of emotional intelligence. Kasi social, kailangan marunong tayo makisama as early as when we are young, sa playground, sa school, sa kindergarten. So lahat yan, kailangan natin matutunan, sometimes painfully, kapag bata tayo. Yung social na yon, yun yung parang sinasabi ni Doc Joseph kanina about empathy and compassion. Kapag ang bata ay may empathy and compassion, kahit paano sensitive siya dun sa feelings at emotions ng ibang bata na kasama niya, let's say sa school or kalaro niya. Let's say may batang umiiyak, lalapitan niya at i-console niya. Meron tayo kasi tinatawag na mirror neuron sa ating brain. No? Kapag may nakikita tayong umiiyak, parang gusto natin gayahin or nafe-feel natin yung nafe-feel ng taong yon. Kaya that is actually an important measure of emotional intelligence. Kapag nakita natin umiiyak yung bata, tatanungin natin, anong problema? Gusto mo ba na laruan? Tapos i-share natin yung laruan natin. So that is a very good sign that the child has very good maturity and also a good sign of social and emotional intelligence. So kailangan i-nurture natin yon sa mga anak natin, no? Para maging mas successful sila in life. For example, kapag ang bata sa playground, siya yung laging nagbubully, ayaw niya i-share yung laruan niya or kung may naglalaro, inaagaw niya yung laruan niya. Yung ibang bata sa playground, kahit na hindi sila nagsasalita or takot sila sa bully, ayaw nilang ikaw maging kalaro kasi bully ka or you create problems in the group. So eventually, this will translate later on, no? Kapag naging adult na, yung cooperation in the right context, kailangan kaya gawin ng bata. Natututunan niya to as early as yung mga 5 years old sa school at sa bahay. No? Kung nakikita niya na ginagawa ng magulang is ganito. So meron siyang imamodel niya yun. For us, we have to be responsible adults to show yung social skills na magandang tularan ng mga bata.
Definitely. They are such a sponge, especially at
Yes.
this age. Toddlers or kids were very mindful of even how we talk to each other. Okay, the final one, and this is super interesting to me, play or sports. Tell us about that, Doc Joseph.
Siguro dapat itong domain na to si JC ang mag-discuss.
That's true.
Well, napaka-importante ng sports, no? Kasi in sports, when you play, there are rules. Regulatory to no? Importanteng matutunan ng bata that in life, there are regulations, even in something that you enjoy. Regulations in terms of how you do things. For example, yung domain ni JC, pwede niya kaming contra and after. Kasi see, how do you dribble, no? How high do you lift it, you know? When you take steps, how many steps are legal? There is always a legal way and there's always a restriction as to what you can do. Otherwise, it's foul. Napaka-important yung rules because these are sports and these are games of children. And always remember that to make the child realize is that life is a bigger game and there are rules to play. And it starts with the little games you start to expose them to at this young life.
Ganda. That is true. That is so true. Doc Jun?
So yung tinatawag play, physical activity, exercise, or sports, lahat yan, they belong to the same group, no? As what Dr. Joseph said, importante rin siya for the social intelligence or the emotional intelligence of the child. Kasi kailangan marunong ka mag-cooperate, lalo na yung mga team sports, no? Basketball, for example, or football. No? So hindi lang yung sarili mo lang ang iniisip mo. So kailangan dito ng high degree of emotional and social intelligence. Now, since Dr. Joseph talked about the emotional intelligence social aspect on the self-regulatory behavior, I'm going to talk about the physical aspect naman. Kasi may mga sports din or mga activities na ginagawa ng bata as an individual sports. Ang sinasabi ng mga researchers na malaki ang kinalaman ng brain sa ating musculoskeletal system. No? So kailangan may coordination ka from the brain together with your limbs, your upper extremities, your lower extremities, eyes mo kailangan mabilis para alam mo saan pupunta yung bola, ano yung i-anticipate mo na gagawin ng next ng opponent mo. So lahat yun kailangan ng high degree then of intelligence. Iba nga lang, no? Nasa sports siya, physical. And isa pa, alam nyo ba na kapag nag-exercise tayo, lalo na kung medyo high intensity yung sports natin, no? Let's say cardio exercise, it actually stimulates the brain to produce yung tinatawag na brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF. It only means that this BDNF is actually facilitating more brain connections. Now, there was a study done, an experiment done in the US, when they improved the physical education curriculum of a particular school, they performed better academically compared to the other schools in the US. So nakita nila na physical activity, physical education, more movement, more sports for the children can actually improve intelligence. So importante talaga na merong activity, physical activity, aside from the mga social skills na matutunan ng bata, meron din tong benefit physically, not just for the muscles, not just for the cardiovascular system, but more importantly, and maybe not a lot of people are aware of, may effect siya sa brain. Kaya importante na may exercise yung bata, naglalaro siya physically, hindi video games, no? Tumatakbo, nag-interact with other kids to enhance his intelligence.
And I guess at a time like this, that technically, like even in our playgrounds, hindi pa allowed ang mga bata. Even running around at home, whether alone or with siblings, yung napapawisan sa bahay is encouraged. Yeah, movement, I believe also is so important, and getting a bit of sun every day.
Kahit yung mga yung mga simple exercises like running in place, yung mga jumping jacks, kung marunong siya mag-skip ng ropes, and you can do that together with your son or your daughter para bonding opportunity rin between the parent and the child.
Yes, yung mga Zumba and TikTok.
Yun, TikTok.
Yes. Do not forget yung endorphins kasi. Lalo na ngayon, diba? Very anxious tayo lahat. You're actually quarantined and all that. And remember, these physical activities, may graduation yan. Kaya nga tayo now, hindi siya physical education lang. We speak of sports science. That it is something that you invest on for the rest of your life, in fact. So napaka-importante ng endorphins na yan na napoproduce mo a lot more when you engage in physical activities. Kasi here, nare-reduce yung level ng stress and anxiety mo.
Yeah, and I love how the TikTok example came from you, Doc Joseph. I love it. I am so enlightened because, again, we go back to this whole pressure on all the parents of learning from home. And there's so much attention on dapat makuha niya itong lesson na to today and the lesson next month. But in fact, I guess we should be kind to ourselves as parents and know that each child is different and some will really excel in other domains more than others. Like kanina, we had orientation for Lucia's first day of school and I was a bit sad kasi the other kids were more bibo. They were like sharing their examples. And when it came for Lucia's turn, she was a bit shy to share. I know naninibago. Or like days she takes her reading class and she can't read the word right away. Syempre as a parent, you're like, okay lang ba yung development niya? But when you lay it out in this way, that there are so many ways to measure how our children are fast learners. Baka mas sa art, baka mas emotional. Some, syempre, intellect, baka mas social, baka mas sa sports. It opens up your mind in, wow, there are so many ways that my child is a fast learner pala.
That's right. Importante rin na kasi tama ka na huwag natin i-compare yung anak natin sa ibang bata kasi hindi naman sila lahat pare-pareho ng talents and abilities. Yung iba, they have their own strengths and we have to identify that and we can identify that kung lagi tayo nag-i-interact sa kanila. And let's play up those strengths at i-nurture natin yon para maging effective siya as a student. Tapos the others, pwede rin i-improve later on. Pero yun nga, hindi sila pare-pareho. And we have to be kind to ourselves and kind especially to our children para hindi din sila ma-pressure masyado at ma-stress. No?
That's true. I agree na I just want my daughter to love learning and not to be really pressured to perform and to achieve right away.
Yes, Dr. Joseph said learning should be fun. And I personally believe that if the learning environment is more relaxed, the child can learn more because it's out of his own will that he wants to learn, not out of fear. Kapag may fear ka, may stress hormones ka, pwede kang matuto, pero yung natutunan mo, yung na-absorb mo, ay hindi mo ma-absorb talaga, mawawala rin kaagad. But if you learn in a more relaxed and a fun environment, mas magiging effective yung learning process for the child.
That's true. Kasi higher ang motivation mo to learn.
Yes.
Napaka-importante nun. Tsaka remember, sometimes it's later that you find ano ba talagang interest mo. Unlike before, very limited kasi ang track nun eh. It's only academics lang ang track. Only to realize now, there are other fields, there are other avenues. Kaya lang what's important is to expose our children to many other things so that you will be able to discover early ano ba talaga ang line and interest niya. That's very important so that the child will end up being a happy person. And that, di ba yun naman ang gusto natin? Successful ang ating anak and happy at the end.
Yes,
That's
for
right.
sure. Happy and healthy, that is like the number one priority
Yes.
right now for all parents, for their kids. And Lucia seems to be on track, very much on track. As you know, I've met you several years ago. Lucia has been a Similac Gain School child for over a year now. And I enjoy learning so much from all of you all the time. Doc Jun, siguro before we end, I'd just like to talk about the importance of immunity and the connection and how it's connected actually to developing faster learners, especially
That's
at
right.
a time like this.
Yeah, so we talked about a lot of cognitive development of the child. Pero actually, meron ding another aspect of a child's health, which is immunity. And there is a bidirectional relationship between immunity and the cognitive development. Ibig sabihin, may relationship yung dalawa. So if you take care of the immune system, then you also take care of the brain development of the child. Lalo na ngayon, na merong ganitong nangyayari sa ating kapaligiran. We have to strengthen the immune system of the child para ma-resist niya yung mga possible infections na makukuha niya sa iba. And one way of doing it is by improving the child's nutrition. And as you said, that Lucia is already taking Similac Gain School for more than a year now. And one good thing about it is that Similac Gain School has HMO. 2FL HMO, which is a prebiotic for the gastrointestinal tract to make the gut healthy. Prebiotic, ibig sabihin food siya for the good bacteria in the gut. And therefore, kapag healthy yung ecosystem mo in the gut or in the GI tract, mas mahihirapan yung mga pathogenic or yung invading microorganisms to get inside the gut.
Thank you so much, Doc Jun and Doc Joseph. As always, I learned so much from you. Should you decide to produce a podcast, I will be your number one supporter and encourager.
You will be our first guest.
Meron kita isang viewer.
Okay, super. Before I let you go, maybe just really a short final advice to all the parents adjusting along with kids in learning at home in this new normal.
While your child is learning a lot in life, the restrictions that we have actually enhances supposedly, positively, the bonding between the mother and the child. And as you would like the child to learn the world, this time it's more important, mothers, fathers, learn more about your child.
Oh, ganda no. Kailangan yun i-cross-stitch sa pillow. Para, Thank you so much, Doc Joseph. How about you, Doc June?
Yung situation natin ngayon, parang marami view it as a negative. Pero nandiyan na yan eh. So let's make the most out of it. So let's use this time to bond with our children, to teach them, to take this as an opportunity to coach them, to mentor them, and to teach them the life skills that they would need later on. So they need a happy and loving environment so that they can learn even just in the confines of your own home. And secondly, we have to support this by proper nutrition. And proper nutrition, as I mentioned, it provides the infrastructure for the brain and for the entire body so that the child can develop in all of those aspects na pinag-usapan natin, social, emotional, physical, art, etc. Kasi kailangan niya yon later on when he grows up as an adult. And Bianca, can I also add that if for those of your viewers who would like to know more about nutrition or would like to have nutrition counseling, they can actually call our hotline at 8995-1555, or they can also drop us a message through the Alagang Abbott Facebook page. So there will be nutritionist dietitians who can answer your questions about nutrition.
Yes, that's so helpful, especially now, technically, ang hirap to physically go out to see a pedia, to ask a nutritionist. Thank you so much again, Doc Joseph and Doc June. Always a pleasure. And to all the parents watching this, I am sure ang dami niyang natutunan. Thank you, and till next time. Bye!
Next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you too.
And just to recap everything we've learned, how do we develop fast learners in the new normal? And how do we make sure our children are learning despite school being at home? So there are processes our brains go through when learning. Brain processing speed is the speed in which our brains make sense of things around us. And long-term potentiation are the patterns formed in our brains through the connection of neurons. This process of learning can be described as this idea of absorb and apply. We absorb the things around us with our senses and apply through our behavior in the world. Of course, good nutrition is key because this serves as an express way to develop faster learners, and poor nutrition, on the other hand, will affect immunity and learning. There are many ways in which your child might be a fast learner. Maybe it's through art, where they express themselves and where we as parents learn more about them. Maybe it's more emotional, with emotional intelligence or EQ being a strong predictor of success. It could be intellectual, where they're able to gain knowledge quickly and apply what they know by solving problems. It could also be social, where they display empathy, compassion, and respect towards others. Or maybe it's through play or sports, where they easily understand the rules of the game and also improve intelligence. What is important for us parents to remember is to not compare our child with others and to make learning fun for them. Of course, when they get the proper nutrition, they have stronger immunity for faster learning. At the end of the day, as parents, what we want are for our children to be happy and healthy. Thank you for watching this special Paano Ba To webinar presented by Similac Gain School. We hope you learned and we hope this helps. Till next time, bye!